So we can get started.
It's a great group.
Welcome to the Champaign Public Library. So happy to have you here today for how to run an annual campaign. My name is Lauren Gramley. I'm the business specialist here at the library. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we have some great resources here at the library, databases, access to foundation directory. You can do one-on-one consultations with me and talk about marketing, fundraising, whatever you'd like. But you know, kind of the best thing is we have these amazing workshops in partnership with organizations like Community Foundation with local experts. And so I would now like to welcome up Genevieve Kirk. She is the director of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence at the Community Foundation of East Central Illinois. So welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here for our foundational fundraising program. We surveyed our nonprofit partners a couple of years ago, and one of the things we heard strongly was that you were eager to have more information about how to fundraise effectively. So we've been pleased to bring you a number of workshops, and today's workshop on how to run an annual campaign is a new one. I'm very excited to be welcoming Sharla Jolly as our guest presenter today. I did want to share that we do have a one-page handout that Sharla has provided. Hopefully you picked it up on the table in back. I'll walk forward in case if you missed it, and we'll pass those out. I'll also be sending those out by email after today's session, as well as the PowerPoint deck, so know that you will receive a copy of that after today's session. And now I'd like to introduce you to Sharla Jolly, who I am so happy to know both as a professional nonprofit colleague, as well as a good friend and a mentor to me. Fundraising coach Sharla Jolly enjoys working with nonprofits to develop solid fundraising plans that can help them meet their long-term goals. She has more than 30 years of experience with communications, marketing, and fundraising in higher education and nonprofit environments. Sharla currently serves as the Senior Development Manager for the American Cancer Society, where she oversees the Coaches vs. Cancer of Illinois event, among other responsibilities. Having raised more than $500,000 in 2024, she brings a strong understanding of the details that it takes to develop strong fundraising opportunities. Will you please join me in welcoming Sharla?
Thank you. That was so nice. You're going to make me cry. I want to thank Champaign Public Library and also the Community Foundation, Genevieve and Lauren, for having this, because I think it's exciting to be able to talk about what we are doing. I'm going to flip to can I flip to this mic? And walk around, because I don't stand steady very easily, so. Yes. There we go. All right, now it's on. All right, so just to let you know, is this okay if I'm down here? All right. So I really like to talk about the F word, fundraising. It is the word that some of us and some of the leadership that we work with have such a difficult time with. Even some members of our community have a hard time with the word fundraising. I mean, look, we have titles that have advancement and development, and we never say the F word, right? But the idea is that we should all be proud of fundraising, because what we're doing is we're raising funds for things in our community that make a difference. And we should all be able to feel good about that and help others understand that there's a real benefit to us raising these funds, because it goes back to help those that we care about. So that's just my beginning kind of stand-up. Here's who I am. Sharla Jolly. I am a subcontractor with Fox Philanthropic Advisors. So I do annual giving fundraisers. Sherry's in the back. Yay, Sherry. Thanks for being here as your support. I'm also a senior development manager. But why do I have all of this experience? And why do I want to share it? I believe in our community. I believe in the things that we are doing. And I want to see you be successful, because we all have a place in this process. So I like to take my experience, I consider it more of coaching rather than just coaching, standing beside you, giving you the information you need so that we can all move forward with annual giving. I've done this for 30 years. I started out in communications marketing, actually at WCIA is where I started my career. And I went into community relations there. I fell in love with our community. Went at the university in communications and marketing, helped with the branding campaign. We now call it Illinois. That was part of the branding campaign. It was very cool. And then got really curious about fundraising and why fundraisers didn't work with the communications and marketing folks very well. And so out of my curiosity, I moved into a platform where I love it because I feel like we get a chance to see the data and see the work. So what you're going to see today is a lot of the stuff that comes from a communications and marketing background, and it moves itself into a fundraising platform. Some easy processes, but there are 100 ways to do this. So that's why when you hear my alarm go off, we're going to kind of stop where we are, and I'm going to have you shoot out some ideas, things that you're working on, and show you how it can be different based on where you are. All right. Annual giving. So sometimes we talk about annual funds. Does anybody talk about it as annual funds within your organization? That's really a mechanism, a financial term. It's a mechanism for how we hold mainly unrestricted dollars, but sometimes it's different. Every organization can be different. Annual giving really is that the efforts that we put to making sure that we have donors who are giving year after year, and typically to an unrestricted fund. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today really talks about annual giving and that platform for how do you put things together into a plan to allow you to be able to have donors who come in year after year after year that you're supporting through this process. So that's a lot of what I'm talking about. Annual giving is just really critical in the sense that where you want to be able to have your annual donors, and then how many of you have any sort of like campaign, like a campaign for building or any other campaigns that you have going on? Okay, so as that, you want to make sure that your donors understand the difference between their dollars that go into annual giving and their dollars that go into this campaign, because you don't want to necessarily lose them to the campaign and then they get out of that habit, right? So you want to make sure that you have also worked with your leadership, your board, your donors to really clarify what are the differences and where do each serve themselves in fundraising. Oh. I want to go these are the things we're going to go over. They're on the sheet that you have in front of you. I just condensed it into a one-pager to make it easy. I'm not going to read them off because you can read. Okay, the first thing you're going to do is set your fundraising goals. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I feel like you have the information in front of you, and actually the discussion is probably going to be the richest thing that we do because everybody in this room is an expert, not just myself. So when you're setting your fundraising goal, the thing that you want to do is say, what do you want to accomplish? Okay, so do you want to accomplish a dollar goal or a donor goal? So a dollar goal might be, I want to raise $100,000 with the fundraising event that I have coming up. And then you'll walk through that. Or it might be, I want to move my loyal donors into recurring gifts. And so you think about it from those two standpoints. You want to be able to look at it and think about what is it that you want to be able to do. Then you're going to determine what audience will help you reach your goals. So this is my goal. I want to raise $100,000 for an event. And I know that I had 3 sponsors last year that I want to make sure that at least one of them might increase their giving, right? So, and you create a formula. I've done this. I'm getting ready to do Coaches versus Cancer. And I have looked across we're blessed to have 1,700 people who attended last year. So I looked at all of the people who have attended and said, okay, do I have anyone who was just a ticket buyer that I think would buy a table? And how many of those people do I need to increase? Do I have anybody who is at a lower level and that I can move them to a higher level? And what you'll see as we go through this is all of the different steps. I'll kind of show you how that works. But remember that these are your audiences that are going to help you. We are fundraisers, but we don't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. You need a good volunteer base, and oftentimes your volunteers are going to help you reach the goals that you have. So when you're thinking about who will help you reach your goals, think about board members, foundations, businesses, current donors, new donors, volunteers, social media followers, and prospects. The thing I love about the work that we're doing here is that you get to see the data. I guess I'm kind of a geek in that way, but I really like to be able to see who, because to me, even though it's an audience and it seems like it's just data, those are people. It's the one thing, this is going to feel very much like cut and dry. Relationships are the art of what we do. So for me, it's more helpful to be able to see all of these people in my plan, and then I can mark those. Hey, I know I'm going to see so-and-so at this event. I know that I need to talk to this board member. And instead of it just being a blind 10, number 10 of people that I need to reach, I actually put names with them. And I come up with strategies to be able to reach out and meet them where they are. So hopefully that's helpful. Relationships are critical. Choose your communication method. How will you communicate with those people? How are you going to communicate with your board members to tell them that they really need to be on board with your campaign to build a new building? Because it's your board that's going to help you. They're going to be the ones who are going to help resonate out, right? But your board helps you because if you have 100% of your board members giving to this campaign, it tells the bank that you're going to have to finance with that they're on board too, right? So there are all kinds of things and messages that you're going to need to think about when it comes to the audiences that I wrote down, and they're on your sheet too. But think about it. What do you need to say at a board meeting? What kind of electronic or print solicitations and communications do you need? What kind of gift forms? Your events, all of the different places where you might interact with those audiences, you need to be thinking about it and writing it down in your plan. And the hardest part, I think, is between the communication methods and the next slide, your messaging. Because honestly, it just becomes this huge, plan. I tend to put it either in a Word document or in an Excel spreadsheet. And the Excel spreadsheet typically has multiple sheets in it based on who I'm trying to reach and a timeline and those. I have used Smartsheet. I don't know if any of you have used Smartsheet to do this. And it's also a fantastic tool, especially if you work with a team, because then you can assign different things to a team member and everybody can access it and see. So just a couple of tools as we kind of blow this out. So we've set our goals, we know our audiences, we looked at the ways we can communicate with them, or the audience, and then what messages do you need to communicate. Overall, the two major things that you need to communicate, make sure you're always communicating your impact, usually through stories. So what kind of impact is your organization making? I think all of you know that. But really telling those stories, not from an organization perspective, but from someone that you are serving. Make sure that you're telling that story in that way. And then education, because you're going to come across people who you think know who you are, but you really want to be able to share with them exactly who you are. And then you need to organize your team and tools. What tools do you need to be successful, and who on your team is going to do the work? So you need to create a fundraising plan, have processes, metrics, and brand. Let me run through those real quick. So a fundraising plan. One of the things that you're going to need is a communication solicitation schedule. That is really, as you say, let's talk about end of the year. How many of you are getting ready for your end of the year solicitations? Good, I'm glad you've already started. I've been working with Chris at races, and I mean, you cannot start early enough because all of the different processes that come into it and thinking that through. So that's why a fundraising plan for the year, if you know your overall goal, and then you can put it all together, you can add in your communication solicitation schedule, your personalization and giving levels. So make sure that when you're doing this, you're thinking through your data, because you're going to be able to personalize whatever you're sending out, email, letter, whatever it looks like. You want to be able to think about, can you personalize it based on their giving levels or their funds? And this is probably feeling pretty high level and maybe like a lot. We'll get into the nitty gritty as I take your questions. And what's the frequency? As you're doing your fundraising plan, you're thinking, okay, I have an event in April and I need to have another newsletter go out in July or whatever it might be. And then, okay, now we're gonna do our end of the year campaign. Or do you do, when I was at Cunningham Children's Home, we did 7 touches throughout the year. So, you know, that was a great way to do it. And a lot of us think, oh, 7, really? But that was a magic number for us. So just, you know, we do one in January and February. Maybe it was more stewardship oriented. We would do, getting into the weeds, but we would break it out into people who had given in the previous year and make it a thank you with a don't forget to give to us. We would break it out into someone who hadn't given during the year and we wanted to see them back and a reminder. So we would change the text just slightly, and we would go through a mailing house and have them help us change that text within the letter and send out to those groupings. So I think the most effective way to do this is to see at what level you can, this is sort of my formula, at what level can you personalize it without having to spend a lot of manual time with those letters. Does that make sense? So if you can have a mailing house that will take a spreadsheet from you and you can just easily tweak it based on those groupings, and it's easy, and it's easy for you to get it out of the database in a way that makes sense, go for it. So try to personalize it as much as possible. Your frequency, kind of look at when things hit, and then your event schedule needs to all be part of that. Processes, things that you have to have in place, or at least be working on as you go through it. Gift processing. If you are in an organization where you do not know what happens when the check comes in, you need to go and find out what happens when the check comes in, who touches it, how do you get the information that you need, how you make sure that the data gets into the computer in the way that is appropriate, because like I said, personalization is really built on having that information accurate. You want to make sure that if they call themselves, if Richard goes by Dick, you want to make sure that you know that, so that when you send out that letter, it calls him by the name he goes by. So just, you want to be involved. It feels sometimes like you're being controlling, but when they understand, when you can teach other team members that what you are doing is helping to personalize it and bring people in, that is going to be the first step in making sure that you're really working with getting people on the inside. They feel seen and known. Just think of it that way. Every person you work with, you want to make sure that they feel seen and known in this process, especially those who are supporting you. So gift processing, make sure you have a process in place. And data management, again, it goes back to the gift processing piece, but also making sure that you have the right data, that you're using a software that makes sense for the process, that you can pull the data out. It's not just about how it goes in, but how you pull it back out. And then stewardship, again, the personalization, and then making sure that you have a letter that can go out. Sometimes you need to personalize it based on the fund that they've given to, who your signer is. Think about all those details, because in the end, this stewardship piece is critical for the next gift. Always think before the next gift. You ask for the next gift, always. And make a stewardship letter purely a stewardship letter. So make sure that you have thanked them without asking before you make another ask. And there are lots of ways to do stewardship too. Currently with the American Cancer Society, we also do a follow-up, a holiday card, which a lot of people do, but right immediately after, because we have such great photos from this huge event, we put together a pretty inexpensive photo book from Walgreens and send it out, but it also gives me an opportunity to go face-to-face with those people who are sponsoring us. So think about all the different ways that you may steward them. Send out a thank you letter or thank you note immediately, and then find other ways to drop off things, or take them to lunch or whatever it might be. And then also with the organization, make sure that you're looking at the metrics. So this is, I'm throwing it out there. This is something that I don't want to go deeply into. Maybe we'll do it at another time. But just something for you to be thinking about are the metrics, because in the end, you want to make sure that your return on investment matches what the board and your leadership wants. And so your return on investment is going to look at your revenue and your expenses and make sure that you're within a certain dollar amount, that you're not spending so much. And I also like to do it with percentages, because to me, a lot of the organizations that are judging fundraising or looking at fundraising, they're going to use percentages. So what percentage of your overall budget are you using to be able to bring in these fundraisers or the funding sources? So just make sure you're always paying attention to your donors, new and retrained, your dollars, the annual dollars and other dollars, and then your event revenue versus expenses. And we can talk a little bit more about that if you guys have questions. And because I come out of a marketing and communications background, consistency in your brand is really critical. So just sort of make sure that people know you when your letter comes in the mail for end of the year, that you're maintaining your consistency, not just in the way you look, but in the way you sound. So are you sounding like yourself on social media and in your letters and all of those kinds of things? All right, now we're going to take a break. Good, it's before 12:30. I'm a talker, so I didn't know how long it would take. All right, I am excited. This is the part that I love, because I guess I grew up with, my mom's a school teacher, and I just think shared learning is really the best thing. I'm going to turn off my alarm so it doesn't go off. Have you guys had a chance to think about the projects you're working on and something that you know the dollar amount or the donor, like what your goal is? Anybody feel like, okay, now we can't spend a whole half hour and nobody say anything, so I'm just going to give you a second. But yeah, okay.
I forgot what you're asking for, but I have a question for you. Our organization has been around for 15 years, but until now it's been 100% volunteer organization. It's grown, it's all good, but we have to move now and professionalize it, hire some people. So this is our first annual campaign.
Okay.
So there are I feel like there's a lot of challenges, the most important of which is I don't have anyone who has marketing and communication expertise on my board. So what are the pitfalls, what are the things I should watch out for when you're starting your very first annual campaign?
Good question. Who are you with?
Promise Council in Bloomington, Illinois.
Okay, awesome. And your name was?
Linda Bowman.
Linda, okay, from Promise Council in Bloomington. Okay, great question. You have probably the richest resource of volunteers. So make sure that you put your volunteers in a position to be able to help you. That may not be they may not do the work, but they can put you in touch with others who might be able to do the work. Do you have data? Do you have a donation? You have donors?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have them in a database?
Yes.
Okay, so you have that. That is a great place to start, is to look across them. I think, let me ask, what would you guys recommend? Her goal, do you have a goal, a dollar goal that you're trying to reach?
Probably double what we generally raise about $110,000 a year. We want to double that.
Okay, so $220,000. It's not going to happen in 1 year.
No.
Okay, so just
110 would be this new goal.
yeah, and then you could probably consider like adding half and then half onto that. That's kind of how I look at it. But that may be, I don't know what Bloomington is like as far as being able to move the needle on that. Yeah, I think so. So I would say 110, and then you can. I always say look 3 years out. I also say set yourself a goal, because you always want to know where you're aiming, even if you don't hit it. Because if you don't, you're going to fall far from it and not know. And so that's part of that metrics piece, is being able to say, okay, our goal is going to be $220,000. Who's going to help you reach that goal? Who's going to help her reach that goal? It doesn't have to be staff. Sherry.
Well, so I would think your board, and you said you've had a great volunteer base, and volunteers, I was going to ask that's great that you've had 110,000, you said, coming in. Where has that just come from outright donations? Has that come from events?
A lot of it from grants and corporations, but about 60% of it from individual donors on our website.
Okay, great. Just making donations through the website.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so just in case you couldn't hear, because I know that we might have some folks who have hearing impairments. So they do have a lot of donors that come in through the website. And then also you have an event.
Corporations.
And corporations.
We write a lot of grants.
And write a lot of grants. Okay. So that's also, what kind of relationship do you have with your the grant providers?
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
We do reports to them, and they're pleased with what we're doing, and we get a little bit more every year.
Okay. And can you look at your data and say, these are people that could increase, if we gave them a reason to increase, we could increase them to a different level. Yeah. And
Particularly those individuals.
Yes.
Where
Yeah, and not necessarily just the corporate, but the individuals in particular.
And we've never used our donor database.
Okay, I would start there. Your plan really is starting with, I'm going to raise $220,000. Here are the people that are going to help me get there. And then thinking about what is your message to them. Is the most powerful message to the audience, maybe it's your board members, is the most powerful message to your board members that we need to get here because we need to staff up because I can't do all of this, right? And is that the message? Okay, then your next is, what is the most powerful message to your donors, right? Kids?
Who we help.
Exactly.
That's the most powerful message.
Yeah. And then really, how do they play a role in that is a critical part of that message. So you can tell them what you do, but tell them what they do to help those kids. That's more important to them. Let them know that they are the superhero. They're the ones who are doing the work. And I would say, you know, how you communicate with them is really based on how you're currently communicating with them. Do you need to add in an annual giving letter that is very personalized and shares that specific message? That could be, this time of year is great, we're all sending those out. I also didn't say at the beginning, but I do believe wholeheartedly that once one person is generous, they become generous in a lot of different ways. I'm looking at Caitlin at Cunningham, that's in my head. Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club, I know. I worked at Cunningham Children's Club for 5 years, and Caitlin just started at Don Moyer. But there are a lot of donors that are very similar because they love to help kids, right? And so that if they become, we cannot be competitive. That's what, because if you are helping one person really have that opportunity to know what it feels like to give, they will begin to look at other places to give. So anyway, but that goes back to the annual giving letter. We're all going to be out there. We're all going to be wishing the post office was moving faster. It's the way it's going to work. Nobody's going to open their email. All those things. We'll pound them with emails. So yes.
I was going to suggest to help people, because I was asking what you do, because I think that's pivotal to know what you do. You mentioned kids, so that's good, but what you do for kids, I think finding the people to help you reach your goal would be the ones who you tug on those heartstrings based off of what you do. I don't know what all you do. That's health. I think
Elevator
child
speech,
health,
our mission is to remove barriers to education so that all children can benefit. So
Okay.
it might be a child who comes to school in flip-flops in the winter and needs shoes.
So teachers will
Yes.
help you reach
Yes.
that goal. So those are some of the people, because those are people, so by trade, I'm a clinical psychologist. So I used to work in the school. So that's something that teachers would talk about all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They would come to me all the time, resources, information, resources for the kids, because they came to school, in not appropriate shoes for the weather or clothes or socks, things like that.
Yep.
So teachers, so you can do a campaign at a school, asking them to do a donation drive for you, because of what you do. In Bloomington, you got the students there, go to the education department. Universities are very good, and they want to help. So, my daughter actually, ISU.
Yeah.
30 years.
And I'm going to take this back real quick. Yeah.
She goes to ISU, so again, tapping into the Department of Education, asking, and just kind of connecting and partnering with them, to identify some ways in which they can help you reach your goal.
Yeah. So I think the whole idea is taking that model and being able to say, who are those people, and then what's the communication method that you're going to use, what's going to be most effective, and then being able to sort of measure how you're going. I didn't want to completely, because I know there are other ideas in the room. So anybody raise your hand if you have another thought about how we use this. Is this helpful? And it's kind of seeing it? Okay. Yes.
May I
Here.
I just wanted to add a tactical question to her question,
Okay.
just about lead time and the timing for making all this happen.
That's a great question. It is a balance between what your board members and leadership expects and what is actually doable. I think it's one of the balances that we always have to maintain in an annual giving situation, because oftentimes leadership thinks it's going to happen right away. And we know, how many of you are brand new to fundraising? Yeah, so if you're brand new to fundraising and you don't have relationships in the community, leadership really needs to understand that it takes a while to build those relationships and be able to influence that. So, what are the ways to build those relationships? I'm part of Rotary. Rotary is very service oriented, so there are different ways, or at least reach out and see if you can make a presentation. Some of the different, the exec club in town, other things that your houses of faith, those kinds of things. So where are those places where you see people? I've also done it, and it sounds like stalking, but it really isn't, because I love people, but sort of looking at where am I going to interact with those people, So if you're brand new, I think setting expectations for your leadership is really important, but at the same time, in some situations, you're going to have to be able to perform to at least increase what's going on. So that's, it's a fine balance. And I don't have a magical time frame for it. It really depends on those relationships. And it depends on how much time you put into creating these fundraising plans. But you can get started. I'm a true believer, and this might be my ADHD, but I just like putting the track down when the train's coming. To me, it is more fun, and a lot of fundraising is sort of that way. And so just really being able to say, okay, I'm just going to do it. I don't know that I have a big strategy. Now I do. I have the hindsight to be able to say. But coming into the American Cancer Society, I came in and immediately we had this giant event, right? So I just had to put down the tracks really quickly. What other things do you have? Yes?
I have a question regarding, so I think I recognize the irony of saying this in a library, but people don't read anymore.
Tell them who you are and where you work.
Yeah. I'm Rachel Voss. I'm the development director at Habitat for Humanity for Champaign County. And we're creating our annual appeal or our newsletters and things like that, and we want to make sure our staff time is allotted properly, and if we're writing novels to share our story, what is the balance of now sharing our story without writing a novel for people to read? And pictures are great, but they can only go so far.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to think about this. My favorite, and this is just my favorite, is to write a single page letter and put more in an email, and do a mail email mix, and then you have more space in an email essentially, to be able to share more photos and share links that take them directly to where they want to be. But that has been, for me, the most successful way to do it. But you also have to understand that I know my audiences really well, and I'm fine-tuning it for most of them. But I think that is critical. The other piece is that having really good stories to tell. So it's not, you need to be able to have a good letter that gets in front of them, and I think short and sweet. How many of you actually open up your mail and read it? Yeah, some of us. Probably because we're fundraisers, right? But most of us, I'll read the letter. I'll read Habitat's letter that came in, but I'll go to your website to give. That's typically, so that's why that email is nice. And then I'll even do a double hit of an email. So right now, like if I was at Cunningham right now, we'd be working on our story for the letter. That would have a gift form at the bottom. I don't know if they do it this way anymore, so this is just me, but gift form at the bottom. So we would always send it to a mailing house, so it'd be personalized. So when the gift form came back in at the bottom, we do it on an 8.5 by 14. I'm getting into the weeds, but this might be helpful for some of you. 8.5 by 14, we have a gift form on the bottom that can easily be ripped off and sent in. And the reason that's helpful is because gift processing. Because when it comes in, it has the exact information that they need, and you're not relying on them to write everything in and make sure it's accurate. So starting now and getting it ready now to hit before Thanksgiving, and then following up right after Thanksgiving with one email, and then maybe a couple of end of the year emails. Does that help? The other piece of it I think that's critical is that the stories really need to be powerful. And one of the things that, for those of you that are in a service industry, when I got to Cunningham Children's Home, we didn't necessarily, it's very, our kids are very fragile. You know, we needed to be able to, we had to watch, you have to watch we do not want to give away information on who the kids are that we're serving, right? So we had to come up with a way let me go back. So our staff didn't necessarily work with our fundraising folks in a way that was helpful. And we didn't have the trust. So we had to, that became one of our audiences, to build the trust that we weren't going to send out pictures of our kids. We weren't going to tell stories in a way that gave away too much information. And that we started creating stories that we would have an asterisk and say, this is not, we're not actually using the person's name. And we might tweak it a bit just so that the age wasn't exactly the same, because if this fell into the hands of someone that knew them, we didn't want them to know that they were with us at Cunningham, right? There's just a safety feature there. So, but we had to build that trust over the first year and a half, 2 years, to be able to get some of the stories that we could tell. So that's also, that building that relationship is critical inward also. Which Habitat maybe not so much, but these are people who are really putting themselves out there for the public face, and you have to be careful and keep their safety too. Yeah. Yes, Caitlin.
Can I add just a quick note?
Yeah, here.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah. Say who you are and who you're with.
Donware Boys and Girls Club. I just wanted to add a quick little note that maybe all of you are thinking about, but it's something that our club hadn't done before. We use our newsletters, I'm sure like a lot of you do, our quarterly newsletters, kind of coincide as a fundraiser for us. And we did the remittance envelopes, and we also use a mailing house, which is really helpful in a lot of ways. But something new that we tried this last time, and this last go-around, was just simply including a QR code that included donate now, or our annual giving campaign, sign up now. We saw a huge increase, and it was the first time that we've done it. So it's, again, probably a lot of you are already doing this, but if not, it was a huge impact for our organization.
Yeah.
Like printed? Do you send printed? We do both. So printed, direct, we do about 3,000 of those. And then
yeah. So I think that's, and the other thing is, to be sure, and that's excellent. I'm an old school, so QR codes are still like, do they really work? But it sounds like they do. So we're going to take that. But the other piece is, make sure your website is set up before it goes to the mail house even, because it could hit and then you send somebody and it doesn't even make sense to them as to where they need to go. So make sure that your website is seamless for the people who need to get there, because most people are going to give online. Yeah. So yes. Do you have a project?
Yeah, we have our letter.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay.
But I was curious, do you always solicit for funds? Like, sometimes it's you don't directly ask, but you always have the opportunity to ask for funds. Like every newsletter.
I think everybody does it differently. I'm a true believer that you continue to ask until you thank. And
so thank you.
Yeah. You can do a newsletter. I don't know that people necessarily follow newsletters in the same way. But yeah, it's up to you as to what you think is beneficial. And again, it goes back to, what is your goal? Is your goal to raise $100,000? Then you need to be asking. Is your goal to move loyal donors to a different place? Then that letter might look different, and you may be sending newsletters to specific people. Like at the university, we would send, because I had managed the Chancellor Circle, their leadership level giving, we would send a newsletter to those people who had made gifts at that level within the year and tell them how their gifts were used. But it would be a solicitation message if they had not. So it literally goes back to your goals. What are your goals? What are your audiences? And then what do you need to say to them to move the needle? Yes?
I think along those lines, in marketing, people will say, you ask and ask and ask, or give them a call to action until they tell you to buzz off. Until they say, take me off your list, just keep asking.
Yeah. And we don't want to be obnoxious, but, but maybe we do. No, I'm kidding. To me, it really is, there is nothing about what we do in asking people to support our organizations that is wrong. The wrong thing we do is not looking at who our audiences are and assessing what that message needs to be to them. If I go to coffee with someone, I need to know who they are, what they love, what they support. And I work for the American Cancer Society, so is this, I'm, going for coffee and I'm learning about who they are, and maybe have they had any family members impacted by cancer? And if so, what does that look like? So it's just those, it's the worst thing we can do is just sort of blindly think everybody is the same. We need to sort of peel away. Now, you're going to still need to send out your letters, right? And we all will. And you're going to have a database of a lot of people. So until you kind of can get to that level, keep fundraising, keep sending stuff out, but know that you're laying that track to get to a place and getting it there. Yes?
You mentioned, and I forget the word you used, but you use a clearinghouse or something?
Oh, mailing house, yeah.
Mailing house?
Yeah, okay.
How do I don't know what that is.
There are several in town that I've worked with Premier Print House in Champaign. There's also Up Close. And who else do you work with?
We use Up Close.
Up Close.
And we just send them all of our addresses. They send it out. They put the remittance envelope on for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically what happens with that, so you have your database that you're going to learn how to use, and then you're going to pull a report out. So you'll pull the report from the mailing house, and it'll have the names of the people. You'll have a salutation. You'll have an address. And then in your document that you send to your mail house, which is your letter, you're going to have fields that match the columns in your spreadsheet, and then they'll merge those for you. And you should have someone assigned to you from the print house who will work with you and help you with that. And make sure that you look at proofs. If they say, do you want proofs? Always say yes. I will tell you, I had a situation working with the Chancellor's Circle where the president of the university received the wrong letter. And so talk about embarrassing, because on gift forms too, we say, we would do a formula and we'd say, if they had given, I think it was $2,500 was what got them into it. I can't remember, it might be more than that, but $2,500, then it jumped to $5,000, then it jumped to, $7,500, somebody do the math for me. Anyway, at that point, and so you kind of could see like how people had done. And so anyway, after that, I made sure that I always had proofs. So it happens, and that's, print houses are print houses and that kind of stuff.
You can also buy mailing lists, right?
Yes, you can.
That would be a good way to solicit new donors. So you could send out a mailing through Up Close, or maybe something like we also use Up Close, addresses that you bought for the top earners in your community.
Yeah. And I'm a little hesitant always about mailing. Have you guys had success using mailing lists, do you think? Here, this is Melissa from See You at Home.
I would say we've had some success doing that. We don't put all of our eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
Right. It may be something that we do once a year, just kind of as a net to capture any new donors that may be interested in what we're doing. But that's not the main way we solicit. Yeah. But if you're new, that's what maybe you think for you.
There's an expense.
That could be
Yeah.
way to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I just comment real fast about mailing lists, because if you are looking for a way to get a mailing list and you don't have a budget for a mailing list, we actually have databases here where you can look up people who actually are charitable donors. You can look up people who are interested in the environment or like animals or whatever, and you can actually pull a list of addresses of people here in this community or anywhere you want. And so that's a way to kind of like circumvent having to pay for a mailing list. So I just wanted to mention that real fast.
Yeah. And Lauren is a great resource too. So she grew up in the fundraising world, and so yeah, and so she gets what we do. So that just you contact her if you need. So yes.
Sarah Laufenberg from Dream.
Thank you.
I was wondering if there's a generally accepted threshold for how big your donor database is before it's cost prohibitive to use an up close or something like that?
Yeah. I guess it depends on your time and your staff time. That's really when it comes down to how do I make these decisions. So create your fundraising plan and then make decisions based on your time and your staff time. So I think that doing 300 mailings in-house, that sounds like a lot, but if you have a good volunteer group, that's probably, and you can do that merge yourself. You know, it's just a word merge, honestly, and so you can do that yourself. I would say anything over that amount, I just cost it out and see. Honestly, I haven't done that in probably 3 or 4 years, so I don't know. And I know Up Close is pretty new into this arena of having this data, so they may have, Premier was always fantastic, so I don't, you know, either way. So, yeah. Oh, yes.
I just have a resource. I'm a resource person, if you can't tell already. Give butter.
Oh, yeah.
Give butter.
Yeah.
It's free. It is absolutely fantastic. They just give
butter. It is give, B-U-T-T-E-R. Yeah, give butter.
They are absolutely fantastic, and it is your CRM. And what they do is you can send text messages, you can send emails, and now you can send physical letters, and you can pay just a little extra with the physical letters for them to send it out via mail for you. They do the merge for you. You ain't gotta do all that. They do the merge for you. You can brand the letterhead and everything, and let you preview before they send your stuff out. I just sent emails to like 150 donors from last year for my event, my annual event that we're working on right now. But Give Butter has been like a ultimate savior. You can create campaigns on there. So if you're trying to raise money, you create as many campaigns as you need in a track who's purchasing, and you can create tags. So if you only want the people who donated between this much and this much, send a letter. You can tag people and segment people according to how you, and what letters you want to send. So you can create letters, draft letters, and then send them out. You can schedule them to go out. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's free. They just came up with a paid version, but the free version
it's just as good.
I don't even need the paid version.
Yeah.
The free version is absolutely fantastic.
Okay, we're almost out of time, and so I just want to hit a couple points, and then I'll take a bunch of questions from you. And I have no idea what I did with my clicker. I probably put it down somewhere, but it might be up here. Oh, here we go. Look at that. I'm always losing my keys too. So future tactics, things to always keep about. We talked about plan for acquisition. Plan those areas where you know, make sure it's in your fundraising plan, because most of what I've talked about previously is going to go back to your database and people who are already giving to you or connected with you as a volunteer. But think about, if I have an event, what am I going to do to make sure that I'm acquiring the names of people who are brand new to the event so that I can reach out to them in the future? Or if I have, I don't know, if maybe I need to beef up my annual giving, our end of the year letter, solicitation letter. So do I need to buy a mailing list? So just always have that in the back of your mind. I think it's the 80-20 rule, because it's easy for us to all remember, but just 20% of what you're doing is always having tactics in place to make sure that you're pulling people in who are new to your organization. One of the ways to do that too is through in-kind giving. Maybe you do a drive for diapers at the United Way, and you start to meet people that way coming in the door. So that's just little things like that where you're connecting with people and they're giving, they're already showing their belief in what you're doing. Secure long-term donor support. So just make sure that's also in the back of your head, that you're thinking about how do I make this person a long-term donor to us? How do I move them to a recurring credit card so that monthly they're not even thinking about it, but they're giving to us, right? So maybe there are tactics that you're thinking about in your giving, in your end of the year newsletter that say, hey, you can give, when you make your gift, give it online, and here are the steps to be able to do that. Maybe you pull it out as a specific group that you know are loyal donors, and you talk to them specifically about, you are showing your loyalty to us, your loyalty to the programs by, setting up a recurring credit card. So those kinds of things. And then implement strategies for higher giving amounts. On your end of the year, maybe you do a formula which actually is pretty easy to do. Even if you do it in-house, you can pull the amount that they gave last year and just put in your own formulas in 2 extra columns and bring it over to your gift form. It's not, I make it sound, it's really not that hard if you like using Excel spreadsheets and kind of geeky that way. Or you can call me, I'll help you out with it. But anyway, implement strategies for, higher giving amounts. And that's just one way. Think about, I was talking about coaches versus cancer and sponsors. I mean, I literally have pulled out how each of those sponsors, like what level they've given and who's been giving for the last 3 years and might be able to bump up. I know how many numbers. So if I have 6 people that have bought a table last year, I know I need to reach out to at least double that, probably triple that number of folks with a message that says, hey, we know that you come every year. We'd really love for you to consider being closer to the stage. Or if you're at this level, the incentive is you get to be at our VIP party, right? So all of those kinds of things to think about, what is that messaging that's going to maybe encourage them to go one step higher. All right, this is my information. You can also find me at foxphilanthropic.com and talk to Sherry, because I just work through Sherry. She does a great job with planned giving and major gifts, and it's been a fun go-round with that. But feel free to reach out to me. That's my cell number. It's a mobile number. But before we end, we have about 5 minutes. Any other questions or anything that you brought that you wanted to share or anything like that? Any questions? Yes?
So I just want to share that. So I am in my biggest donation drive right now. We're the Hoist Center. So my name is Dr. Cunningham, and I'm the executive director of the Hoist Center. What we do currently is we provide donations to other nonprofit populations. So I'm a professional beggar.
Fundraiser. You are a fundraiser.
AKA. But I've been doing this since 2009, trying to help youth and their families. And so what we do every year, this is why I'm here, because we do an annual fundraiser. We give pajamas, toys, and books to 600 children. And we're partnering with the University of Illinois this year. And so I'm looking for ways to increase and help us reach our goal. Because we get like $150,000 a year of in-kind donations, but we don't get a lot of cash. We get for this even alone, we get about $90,000 in donations. But some things have changed, and so I'm trying to, figure out ways to reach those goals with monetary donations versus always in-kind. Because in-kind is good, but what if somebody, which this year happened, decides not to give 300 pajamas?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is very similar to what they're dealing with in Bloomington. Is that you need to look at who you're. Now I realize that some of yours are coming from grants, so but your goal is to become to be able to raise dollars.
Right.
So you use the volunteers that you currently are working with, and you have a board that you work with. So you look at who you have. That's a very rich resource, and have them help you. So here's a good way to do it, boots on the ground for the kind of thing that you're doing is get your board members energized to ask their friends and family for things. Maybe it is, you mentioned teachers, and I hate to always go to our teachers because I think they are the great donors to our kids anyway, but they also have connections, to other people. So using that, but really looking at those people that are already around you. So write out your goal. Your audience would be board members, volunteers, and then your grants, your foundation groups right now. And how do you talk to them differently about what you need?
And
that
in-kind donors, those in-kind donors.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Ask them, but specifically ask them with a message that speaks to why that is important and necessary to meet the kids' needs. What will that money do?
Right. That it's the messaging right now. I think part of it, and we had talked earlier, so I kind of know that a lot of it comes from businesses and corporations. It could also be that you look at, so Walmart is one of her donors with some of the items that are received. So it could be that you think of, what am I going to give Walmart in exchange for a monetary donation. So much like I look at our sponsors for Coaches versus Cancer, I mean, I have an event, so there's lots of, but what is it that you can give them? Social media, signage at giveaways, you know, those kinds of things, because when you talk to them in that way, instead of just about in kind, then they respond differently. Walmart is used to that. So it's not going to be outside of what they're used to, and you can share with them, this is the benefit of you helping. And this is why we need the money versus the in-kind, you know, or both. This is why we need both. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any questions? I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a framework. Feel free to reach out to me. I love this stuff. I love this stuff because I know so many of you in the room, and I know you're doing really, really great things. And, but it does work. It's a structure. And then when we get together, we can talk about all of the different strategies that we can use, because you've just heard today, we all have different things that we're trying to accomplish. What's the best strategy? And that will come down to your team, your tools, and your time. And hopefully those three will help you make some good decisions about the direction to go. Anything else? All right. Thank you for being here today. It was awesome.